What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a Star Wars Black Series custom. Today we're going to be working on creating the Sith Lord Starkiller. I was very excited about this. I'd ordered the parts a while back and they just been kind of sitting in the closet waiting for the day, and I had one free weekend and decided to try out this project, and it ended up taking probably 2 weeks, but that's about how it goes most of the time. So let's go ahead and get started with this guy. So I started off with this Darth Vader from the Kenobi show. I had customized him previously to be a damaged Vader, but I just had this extra body laying around. And then all of the 3D printed parts are from Force Creators on Instagram, and he has a website at Force Creators Store. But it came really well packed. Everything was individually bagged, and so it was really easy to keep up with each piece. After seeing this helmet and then comparing it to like the actual Vader body, I realized that this is probably scaled for SH Figuarts, more than likely. Maybe that Vader for a knockoff or something, but I decided to continue on and see if I can get him to fit on this Black Series body. The chest pieces were pretty similar. These lower leg pieces were not, though, and the boots had no holes cut out for any joints. So I knew there was going to be a lot of altering I'd have to do here. But the gauntlets seemed like they scaled up pretty well. And then the hands also had no holes for any pegs, so I knew I'd be doing a lot of drilling to get this to fit together. But I started out with just dremeling the torso, and this took so much material off. I spent forever dremeling this away, and I ended up just dremeling until it was nothing but like the bare necessities, what I needed to plug into. Here's all that aftermath. This is after I've swept like twice too, but as you can see, I took a lot off here just to try to get it to fit in that 3D printed part. Also, I had to remove a little bit of the arm just so I could get some more room in there to plug in the Vader arms. For all my gluing, I use this JB Weld plastic bonder. It says it takes 15 minutes to dry, but it's more like an hour, so be prepared to keep that locked down. So the legs, I dremeled away quite a bit, and the ankle, I could not get it small enough to fit in there, so I knew I'd have to just snip it off. And so I did that, and it all seemed to fit pretty well. And then later on, I'll realize that this leg is way too long, but for now, I was pretty hopeful with this, and I decided to use these Reveltech joints for the ankle pegs, just so I could keep as much movement as possible there. And I ended up filling in the hole with some green stuff that would make it easier to kind of drill into to get those pegs to fit in. And then after that, I realized the legs were a little bit too long, so I cut the top of the calves off. And as you can see here, I tried to use some of the peg, or not the peg, but like the joint previously. Oh yeah, there's what I cut off. But I tried to use some of that joint to try to glue these onto the knee. It's kind of hard to describe, but you can see what's going on here. And then on one side, I broke it, so I had to use a nail, and I just glued it into the knee to try to get it set on there. But I drilled a hole in there, and it was fitting pretty well. The nail definitely worked way better. It was way more sturdy. But to kind of fill in that gap, I used this epoxy sculpt, and it's mostly on the back, so it's not very noticeable. So I was pretty happy with how this ended up turning out, but I did lose a lot of articulation in the knees. But you can see that's how it's going to line up, and I just have to glue that and let that set overnight to get as strong as possible. But here's after I sculpted it, and you can see I already painted the calves too, but I had to go back and repaint those. And I mean, it's not the best, but it definitely is better. The leg is not as long, but I did lose articulation. A little bit over 90 is what he still has, but not as much as he had before. But it looks way better, so I'm pretty happy with how that ended up turning out. And there's the ankles. They worked out pretty well. So moving on to the arms, I dremeled off quite a bit, just try to get those gauntlets to fit on, and they end up fitting on pretty well just from the beginning. I didn't have to do very many more alterations to this after I did the initial dremeling. But for his wrist pegs, I end up taking these off of a knockoff SH Figuarts Clone Trooper. I've had him for a while just sitting there, so I decided to use him for something. And after I filled that in with green stuff and I I could plug these in pretty well, and they held pretty well after adding a little bit more green stuff. So there they are after I've added a little bit more, and I also cracked the top of the wrist, so I had to resculpt that, but these held pretty well. I think these held better than the legs, so I was pretty happy about that. Now for the upper body, after all that dremeling, it did fit in there pretty well. There was just a lot of gaps that needed to be filled in, but the arms cover up most of it, so I think I left some of these. That lower gap though, I did need to add some epoxy sculpt just so you can't just see right through him. And this belt that he came with was just a little bit too small. It looked a little bit silly. So I end up just taking the Darth Vader belt and cutting off all the boxes and stuff, and then using the front piece from the 3D printed belt. And here's the Vader cape I end up using as the skirt piece. So after I reheated the body to try to get the arms in, they snapped in pretty well and they looked really well, but the torso piece started cracking really bad. I don't know what caused this, but the seller sent me a replacement pretty quickly. He actually sent me 2, and I tested one by doing it again, and it cracked as well. So if you buy this kit, make sure you don't heat it. I used hot water. Maybe a blow dryer would work better, but I would just skip the heating part if possible. But I filled in, this is the replacement by the way, I filled in the shoulders where the shoulder pads used to be. I glued this neck piece on and then filled it with some hot glue so I could put this double ball joint in there to use to click the head onto. But I put a bunch of epoxy sculpt on the shoulders and sanded that down to look smooth, and then inside the body I put a bunch of epoxy sculpt just to try to keep the body in place so it doesn't shift around in there, because there wasn't a lot of material left to glue to. So with the head, I decided to try to do my own. So I found this free file on Thingiverse for a life-size one. I scaled it down to 1/12, and then here it is painted silver. I got a little excited about it, but here it is compared to the head that came with the kit. The head that came with the kit is okay. It's kind of, the details are a little muddy. I don't know what caused that. Maybe where you put the supports, I'm not sure. But with mine, it was a little bit more crisp, so I decided to go with mine. And it was a little, the one I got was a little small, so this one's a little bit bigger than 1/12, just so it looks like a head could actually fit in there. But here it is all painted up, and I'll go over all the paints I used for the whole body, but most of it is black and this kind of steel color from Citadel. I like this steel color because you can put it in the airbrush and hand paint it. But for the stripes going down, I painted them yellow, and then I went back and painted them gold just so they'll really pop. And then for the darker parts, I used this gunmetal gray. I just did like 1 or 2 coats. I didn't want it too dark. I just wanted it to look a little bit different than the silver. For all of the black parts, I used this Army Painter black, and it worked out pretty well. It did need to be thinned down a lot, but I have never tried it before, and my usual black I ran out of, so I had to use this one this time. For the body, it's more of the same. I just painted it black and went back with that steel, that Citadel color, and painted all of the metal parts. The supports left a little bit of scarring on some of the details, so I just kind of dry brushed the back where the supports were, and then on the arms, I just kind of eyeballed where I think his little bands would be. But those were just all painted silver, and then later on I'll come back with a black wash to try to get some of that detail back. But I think everything turned out really good. The front looks great, so that's what's most important. The shoulder pads, I'm just gonna use these bands. They're a little bit stretchy. I'm gonna glue them underneath the shoulders here, and then just try to glue the shoulder pads onto that. The hands were also, he gave me a large selection of hands to go through, but these two looked the best. Again, some of the supports kind of messed up some of the details here, like the little knife finger things weren't as sharp as they should be. And this one, the knife finger things were good. It's just the hole for the lightsaber to go into was not big enough. So this one was especially bad. I think the finger looks a little phallic here, so I definitely didn't want to paint this one up. But I got all these lightsabers too, and these were going to be a pain to paint, so I decided just to paint them silver and try to bring out some detail with a black wash. But here's the lightsaber that he's going to be holding, and that hole where the blade needs to go also needs to be drilled out because it's a little bit too small. But like I said, with this hand, the hole to hold the lightsaber was not really big enough, so I did have to drill that out, and luckily I didn't break anything. So here's everything painted black though. I just sprayed it all down. I usually base coat with black for like a silver paint, so I'm just gonna hand paint all of the metal details on the hands. But I did trim away a little bit of the knives on the fingers just to make them look a little bit better. And then these lightsabers, I did the same thing. I painted them black and then came back and painted them that same silver color. And the same with the shoulder pads. All of these are gonna get black wash to make the details come out a little bit better. And this is the black wash I used. For the lightsabers, I'm not really gonna paint anything. I'm just gonna do like 4 or 5 washes on them. So here's the body after a black wash, and I went through and kind of dry brushed some silver on some places. But you can see the finger knife things turned out a little bit dark. I wanted them to be a little bit more shiny, but it's okay. Same with the lightsaber and the bands. I think I didn't let them set long enough to dry, and that's why they kind of absorbed more black paint, because I did a wash on these shoulder pads and they stayed super shiny. So maybe let the paint dry a little bit better. But this ab piece I dry brushed and it looks a lot better now. It really stands out against the body, and all of the articulation in the wrist still works pretty well. So I was happy with this. For this lower piece, I didn't really video very much, but here's the lightsabers glued on the belt. For the belt, I just glued the Darth Vader belt on, cut out the front, and glued the front piece from the 3D print on there. And these little metal pieces, ignore that. I end up just gluing the lightsaber on there. I was gonna try to use some metal to make some hooks so the lightsabers could stay out of the way during articulation, but these end up breaking off almost immediately. So I end up just gluing all the lightsabers to the belt in kind of random places. But you can see his legs still work pretty well, so I was happy about that. The lightsabers didn't get in the way. So here's after I glued them on, and after this I touched up the belt with some black paint too, because the super glue kind of left some white marks where it dried. And you can see the shoulders too. I painted those black where I sculpted, and then I glued these elastic bands underneath the shoulders. I'm just gonna glue the shoulder pads onto those so those can get out of the way when I move the arms. So here's the final figure. I think it turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. I think the details really turned out pretty well with all the washes and the dry brushing. The helmet, I ended up going back and using some like gloss paint to help the visor pop. But everything turned out pretty well, and he holds together pretty well. I'll have the creator, the 3D modeler, I guess, I'll have his Instagram linked below, so you can go check him out. And if you have your own printer, it'd probably be a good option. Just buy the kit from him. I know he sells it on CG Trader, and you can print this whatever size you want and however much detail you want to get. As a just kind of quick review of the seller, it came packed really well, and he replaced my broken part within like 3 or 4 days. He had it shipped and I had it in my hands, so that's definitely a positive. The print quality is there. I think it could be better. Some of the supports were in kind of weird places that kind of messed up some of the details, but another positive for this kit is it was just really cheap. I think it was like $20 for the whole kit, and it came packed really well, and it came with a bunch of options. Also, I'm pretty sure this was scaled for SH Figuarts, so I kind of wish he would just put that in the listing, or make a 1/12 scale and then 1/12 Black Series scale maybe. That would probably work out a little bit better. I don't know if it's just maybe it wasn't supposed to go on the Vader body, but I just assumed that everybody was going to use this on the Vader body, so I kind of just wish that would have been specified for sure. But it wasn't that big of a thing. It all worked out in the end, so I'm not that worried about it. So if you are a beginner to building kits like this or putting together stuff like this, I don't know if I could suggest this one. This one just seems a little bit more difficult. I mean, I've been doing this for a while and I still kind of struggled with this one a little bit. I got a final result, but there was a lot of mess ups along the way. Sellers for 3D kits like this kind of vary in what kind of detail you're gonna get and what kind of price you're gonna pay. So, I mean, if you want to see more reviews of sellers, let me know down in the comments. Like, what sellers you're wanting to check out or who you think I should look at next. I don't really buy a lot of 3D printed parts just because I have my own printer, and I like to support the creators where I can. But just let me know down below if that'd be something you'd be interested in, just seeing me buy kits and try to put them together and give them quick reviews. But thanks for watching, and if you want to see like quicker videos, I put stuff on TikTok once a week at least, and on Instagram I try to post like twice a week. So if you want to see more content from me, you can check me out there. It's just Looper Customs on both of those. And just let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. I do Marvel and DC as well, but I mostly do Star Wars. So if you want to see any other Star Wars characters, let me know down below. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.